Hello, I am Jennifer, the Executive Director for Deaf Iowans Against Abuse. June is Elder Abuse Awareness Month and Pride Month. 2 days ago, we had a Facebook Live post with two of our staff, Talina and Kinsey, to discuss what we can do within the LGBTQIA communities and how we can support and be an ally. So today we're meeting to discuss what we can do within the elder community. With me today I have Shirley. She's the president of the Iowa Association of the Deaf. Albert, the vice president of Iowa Deaf Senior Citizen Organization. And I have Chris, a member of the elder community. And they are joining me today. So thank you for being here with me today. And to help me figure out what we can do to raise awareness and what we can do to solve or at least figure out a way to show victims of elder abuse that they are not alone. That we are here to support and we are here to help. We are here to educate. We are here to listen so that violence and abuse will end. You know, in Iowa, really all over, there are no statistics related to elder abuse. Unfortunately, there have not been enough reports, but we see that it is happening. So, what can we do? Surely, you're right. What can we do? I see many victims are afraid to report. Albert, they are afraid of communication problems. They struggle to get an interpreter. There's a lot of fear. Jennifer, fear is very common. It's everywhere, not just with the elders. We really need to educate and help them understand that it's normal to feel fear. But don't let fear stop you from moving on. Because it will be better at the other end of the rainbow. So it's a matter of how we can reach out to those individuals. Surely, there are many CODAs, children of deaf adults, who abuse their parents. And maybe the CODAs don't realize that they're doing that. We should reach out to these children of deaf adults and educate them as well, that maybe their deaf parents are afraid of them and that they feel oppressed. Something so that CODAs realize what they're doing. Jennifer, it's not just CODAs, it's everyone. Hearing people, African American, LGBTQIA, everyone. It's not just one small community. But oftentimes it is a learned behavior. Parents teach this behavior to their kids who then grow up to end up doing it to their parents and abusing their parents. And a lot of people don't realize that. If a child is abused by their parent or grandparent, that they could become an abuser when they grow up. It's a learned behavior. We need to teach kids that it's not right, because kids don't know the difference between right and wrong. Surely, I know a lot of deaf adults tend to let their kids take on a lot of responsibility when they're young because kids have to interpret for their parents, and so they end up managing and controlling their parents at a younger age. Albert, I'm curious. I know you said there were no statistics, but do you receive reports of elder abuse? Jennifer, last year we had about 10 reach out to us. We have had over 800 people that we helped last year, but out of that number, 10 were elder abuse. Albert, oh, those 10 were directly related to elder abuse? Jennifer, yes. We had reports related to other things, but those 10 were elder abuse, and we can't ignore them. They're really important. Shirley, I know DIA has given workshops here before, but when you go give out these workshops, are you seeing a correlation between the presentations you're giving and the number of reports? Jennifer, it really varies. Shirley, okay, we need to figure out a way to help these people feel safe to report. Albert, we really need more promotion emphasizing that it's okay to report it and the victims have a right and a voice. Chris, so you have fear and possibly they feel shame. They can't express themselves. So how do we get them to open up because of the shame? You know, Shirley, there was a case that happened about 12 years ago. There was a retired man who was deaf. He had his own house, his own vehicle, and was living on Social Security. But he wasn't getting his Social Security check. It was being sent to his daughter. And so he had no money for food and ended up having to go get a job washing dishes so that he could earn money for food and for to put gas in his car, but he never saw that Social Security check. Eventually, some family members came and told him that he needed to report that and he needed to revoke his daughter's power of attorney. And they helped him fill out the paperwork and all of that. And when the daughter found out, she was really mad and told him that if he revoked her power of attorney, she was going to report and tell everybody that he abused her when she was a child. And this man felt stuck, and he passed away not ever seeing any of the money from his Social Security check. And we tried to help file a report, but at that time there was no one around to help like DIAA. Albert, people need to know that they have the right to revoke someone as their power of attorney. They have the right to choose. Jennifer, a lot of people don't realize what their rights are. It's important that we raise awareness and educate them on their rights, that they have the right to revoke a power of attorney. They have a right to an interpreter. You know, we see this in the nursing homes, that these people have a right to an interpreter. It doesn't matter if the nursing home is for-profit or non-profit. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, they have a right to an interpreter. Albert, I remember in 2003, my deaf father was diagnosed with ALS. And I tried to get a qualified interpreter for him in the nursing home, but they refused and ended up hiring someone who did not have much experience, and the communication was bad. We ended up taking him out of that nursing home because of all the communication frustrations. It was really messed up. Jennifer, was that a care center? Albert, my mother ended up taking care of him. They just really felt they had no power and they were really overwhelmed. I tried to tell them it was their right, but they didn't want to fight it. Surely, this reminds me of another situation. The child of a deaf adult kept telling them that they couldn't get an interpreter. They kept saying, "You don't need an interpreter. I can just interpret for you." And it was really a control thing, trying to control their parents and their money. You know, there's some CODAs out there who manage their parents' money as well. and they tell their parents, you can't have your own money, you have to go through me first. That's oppression, and the money doesn't belong to them, it belongs to the parents. Albert, is that something you can report, like financial abuse? Jennifer, oh, absolutely. Financial abuse, you definitely want to report that. That is one of the types of abuse, and one of the things I wanted to talk about. There's different types of abuse. A person can be abused emotionally, they can be abused financially, they can be abused physically, mentally, or sexually. If you see someone who's not getting access to their Social Security check or their pension check, it's being withheld from them, that could be a form of abuse. Surely, there was one nursing home that was abusing my mother in the bath during bath time, and a lot of older deaf people are helpless in those situations and are being taken advantage of and abused. Chris, in the nursing home, they should have females bathing females and males bathing males. Surely, my mother didn't want that man to bathe her, but they kept sending him anyway. Chris, that should really be, part of the profession and part of the rules of the nursing home. Albert, it really depends on the demographics of the nursing home, the ratio of male, female workers and patients. Chris, yes, I remember my mother's nursing home didn't have enough nurses, and my mother was left in her soiled clothing all day because there was no one to help her. And in that situation, that could be a type of abuse. It could be neglect. And all of these patients without anyone are left in their soiled clothing. That could be a type of abuse, right? Jennifer, yes, that could be neglect by not providing the appropriate clothing. Chris, well, when you're young, you can control your bladder, but when you're older, you can't, and there just don't seem to be enough nurses to help take care of that. Surely, you also have the potential for physical abuse as well. My mother had really bad bed sores, and the nurses had to come and change her clothing and move her around for that, but there just didn't seem to be enough nurses to help take care of that. Albert, understand nursing homes have a hard time keeping staff. There's a lot of turnover, and they're really struggling. It's really difficult. Jennifer, and because of so much turnover, sometimes nurses aren't trained very well. Surely, we also see families steal money from their older parents. Chris, stealing money isn't really abuse, that's theft, that's different. Surely, sure it can be abuse. Their finances dwindle and they don't have enough money. Jennifer, it can be financial abuse if they're withholding money from them. It's their money, their right to access their money. Now, there are some cases where maybe a person can't manage their money and they're very wasteful and they need someone to manage it. That's a different story. But someone who is withholding money for their own benefit, that is abuse. Surely, if someone is experiencing that type of situation, how do they report it? Jennifer, it is important to get evidence. If you see that your money is being deposited and you're not getting it, you need to write that down and keep track of it. And then you can turn that into the police when you report it. But you should definitely report it. And they can reach out to us. We can help with that. We can advise you on what to do. We have an advocate who can go with you to report it and help you fill out the paperwork. Surely, if someone's out of state, can they still report that? Jennifer, we can still help you if you're out of state, but you still need to collect the evidence. Surely, the person I know does have the evidence, so okay. Jennifer, sometimes you can see if that state has a deaf agency and you can contact that deaf agency. We all try to help each other. Shirley, how many states have agencies that deal with abuse? Jennifer, there's only 8. Really? Out of 50 states, only 8? Yes, there's one in Seattle. California has one. There's one in Salt Lake City, Colorado, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Did I say all? Was that 8? Shirley, what about Illinois? Jennifer, it's not deaf-led, but they have a program under a hearing agency. There are several other cities who have programs under a hearing agency. Albert, wow, I thought we had programs all over. We need to establish more organizations. How long have you guys been here? Jennifer, we've been here 19 years. We will celebrate our 20th anniversary next year. We were under a hearing program and agency, but about 3 or 4 years ago, we became a standalone agency that was completely deaf-led, but we've been operating for 19 years. Shirley, how are you communicating your program to deaf elders? What type of advertising are you doing so victims can know that they can report? Jennifer, that's a really good question. That's one of the things I want to know is how can we improve our services? Currently we advertise in the Sign Language newsletter, website, and Facebook. Albert, that's good, but a lot of deaf elders do not have newer technology. Some of them do not have video phones, and they're still using TTYs. Jennifer, we did have a TTY number, but I've been here for over 12 years and no one ever called, so we discontinued that line. Do you think we need to go back to a TTY? Shirley, isn't there a 711 TTY number that they can call and go through relay to contact your office, contact DIAA somehow? Is there some way to do that? Jennifer, we can look into that. Chris. There are some deaf who have technology access, but some in the smaller towns and rural areas don't have that, and there are some who really need help. Surely. Yes, in rural areas there's no support and no education. Jennifer, so what do we do for those who don't have computer or internet access? Does your senior citizen organization have a website? Albert, no, we have a Facebook page but not a website. We should probably set one up. Shirley, really his organization is more of a social organization. You know, kind of like IAD, they get together once a year, but it'd be nice if they could expand. Albert, we meet in different towns around the state, and last year we met in Anamosa, and at that time we voted to determine where we would go next, and so this year we're meeting in Decorah. Shirley, usually we have a meeting for the first 2 hours, then we do a tourist activity with an interpreter, and a banquet in the evening. It's really nice. Jennifer, do a lot of senior citizens go to that? Shirley, I think we have about 100. Albert, no, last year we only had 55. Our attendance was declining. Shirley, oh, I know we try to advertise in the sign language newsletter every month. I remember when we had it in Dubuque that year, we had people that would drive clear across the state. But I'm looking forward to Decorah, and hopefully with all of our publicity, more people will come. Albert, yeah, hopefully we'll get more of baby boomers who will like to go out and do different activities. Jennifer, what do you feel DIAA should do? Albert, keep promoting your services. Let victims know that you're here to help them. Shirley, I've also noticed that DIAA isn't involved much with the deaf community. Jennifer, you're right, but we have to be careful because a lot of our victims are in the community, and we could cause fighting between the victim and the perpetrator. So we have to avoid that type of conflict. We can't show that they are our clients because of confidentiality, so we have to be careful. We don't want to go and cause fighting between the two of them. So we have tried to step away. We are victim-centered. That's what's most important, not the deaf community, but focusing on the victim, who happens to be deaf. Surely, but the community needs to be aware that when you come, you're stepping outside of that role. You're attending as a deaf person. Work is put aside, and therefore problems need to be put aside too. Jennifer, we try to do that, but it doesn't always work. Chris, you know, in the deaf club, people know each other and trust each other, or don't always trust each other, and sometimes they're afraid. Maybe they've been picked on before, or people know so much about them because they're such a small community. They know the interpreters, they know the deaf pastors, they know the victim's parents. Albert, you're right. In Iowa, we have such a small community, not like larger cities where there's a bigger deaf population. You know, Shirley says something that happened to me recently. I went to a meeting on Monday, and it was a deaf meeting. It's probably not really abuse, but it was really interesting. I kept being asked, how old are you? How old are you? And people kept looking at me, and I'm 60, but what does that have to do with anything? They should be more focused on my actions and not my age. It was almost as if I would be kicked out because of my age. And they kept asking me that question over and over and over again. I didn't get the point. It really felt offensive. Albert, sounds like discrimination. Shirley, yes, like age discrimination. As if I'm not able to be the IAD president because of my age. I'm active and capable. Age doesn't matter, it's just a number. Jennifer, so as community members, if we see abuse, what do we as bystanders need to do about this? Albert, can we approach the victim and ask them how they're doing? Maybe encourage them to report? Shirley, can we confront the abuser? You know, as a family member, can we confront them? A good friend of mine is being abused. Could she confront the abuser? Jennifer, it's important to ask the victim first. Shirley, I've talked with the victim many times and I've tried to encourage them to report. And I've tried to ask them in a subtle way to report it, but they just say, oh, this person interprets so well. But they could use other interpreters. Jennifer says you can have them contact DIA and we can take the case and go from there. And then you could be an ally and you can encourage them to reach out to a deaf agency that will help them. I'm not sure. I'm sure the CODA, their child would tell them not to call you. They rode with me once to a deaf event, and every 10 minutes they had to text their son and tell them where they were. Every 10 minutes while we were on the road. It was odd. Albert, that seems like a lot of control. Chris, they're telling the son where they're going, but is the son saying the same thing back? Surely, exactly, vice versa. I'm sure the son is not telling the mother every 10 minutes where they are going. Why should she have to report every 10 minutes? Jennifer, is there a CODA organization? Albert, not in Iowa, not that I'm aware of. Surely, that's a great idea. We should have one. We should have one. Albert, but that doesn't always mean that they would join or would be interested in joining. Surely. I know other CODAs. Maybe I could talk to them and get them to set one up. Jennifer, CODAs need support too. Surely, I'll have to talk to someone about that. Jennifer, do you think the victim would feel better reporting to DHS or the police? Surely, this particular person, I doubt it. I think if it was physical abuse, they would, but it's not physical, it's emotional and mental abuse. Jennifer, yes, often people don't realize that that is also abuse. Chris, do they report to DIAA or to the police? Jennifer, if it is serious and dangerous, they should report it to the police first. It's just like as a teacher, I'm a mandatory reporter, and I have to report what I see in the schools. Jennifer, we are mandatory reporters for children, yes, but not for anyone over 18. Because we are victim-centered. We always ask them if they want us to call the police, but if they say no, then we don't. Because sometimes it can be re-traumatizing to talk with the police. It can re-trigger the event, and we don't want to do that. So we talk with them and try to help, and when the victim feels calmer, sometimes they're willing to call the police, but that's not always the case. And what were you saying, Chris? Chris. Protection is important. They might get mad at you for calling the police, but it's really for their protection. Jennifer, if we see the victim is in danger or for our safety, we will call the police. Because it's about the victim's safety and our safety and the safety of others as well. Surely, sometimes victims feel that their situation is normal. They've been in it for so long. Like one situation I know of, different from the one I talked about before, but there's a son who lives with his mother and controls all the finances. And the deaf community sees the abuse and has tried to tell her, but she's afraid. Jennifer, is the mother afraid to be separated from her son? That's pretty common. Shirley, I don't know if the son would maybe be willing to go to counseling. That would help improve things. Chris, it would be great if they could go to DIAA and also get family counseling for the abuse. Shirley. So, if something happens in Iowa and it's reported to the police, do the police have to report it to DIAA? Jennifer, we do ask the officer to refer victims to us so we can help them. Shirley, but they're not required to report to you? Jennifer, it's not mandatory, but it is in their policy to contact us, but that doesn't always happen. We provide statewide police training, but I'm sure there's some who forget, or because of staff turnover, it isn't always communicated. But if they are involved with a domestic violence or sexual assault situation, they're supposed to contact us. Often we get referrals from the police, and they do call us. We get some. We have a good relationship with law enforcement and with the hospitals. So we, try to work together and help each other. We can't do it alone, and they can't do it alone. We need each other. Same with the elder community and us. We need them, and they need us, and we all need to work together. Just as in any community, we all need to work together. Together is so important. Chris, if a officer goes to a violent situation and they arrest a person, do they, like a women's shelter, do they put them in that women's shelter, even though it's a hearing shelter, and your person is deaf? Shirley, he's talking about a domestic violence shelter. Do the police put people there? I was on the board of a like a family resource center at one point, but is the person forced to go to the shelter, or do they go voluntarily? Jennifer, if a victim wants to go to the shelter, they will take them. Shirley, so the police don't force it on them. They may suggest the shelter and offer it, but it's not forced. Albert, but victims tend to go in and out of shelters often. Jennifer, that is common, but it goes back to fear. They're afraid of losing their friends, of their support system, losing even their identity. If they are a wife and they're in an abusive situation they're trying to get out of, they lose that identity as a wife, so then they're not sure what to do with themselves, and it's really frightful for them. So it's important for them to have a support system. Shirley, I'm wondering about the opioid crisis. Many elderly people take opioids, and if you have a family who is dealing with that, is that something that you can help with? Jennifer, yes. We help with substance abuse, suicide, violence, really a variety of things. We do help with that. We have the 12-step program in ASL. I know that a lot of the 12-step program meetings are not really geared for deaf individuals. They don't have an interpreter, so we can help with that. Chris, I know in Chicago, there was a deaf man who was working to set up AA meetings for the deaf to go to, and it seemed to be really well attended, and that was really nice. Shirley, were they elderly or young deaf individuals going to those meetings? Do you remember? Let me think. The deaf individuals tended to be younger. You know, many people start using when they're young. Shirley, I know we talked a while ago about maybe a mental health therapist, and how great that would be to have a deaf mental health therapist in Iowa. And then they could work with our elderly community about elder abuse. That would be great. Jennifer, Iowa doesn't have one, but that's our goal. It's exciting to think about. What do you think a critical need is within the deaf community? What do they need to be aware of? Shirley, empowering them, that they can do things on their own. They don't have to rely on other people. Albert, encourage and educate them about their rights. Shirley, do you have a drug counselor? Jennifer, we can help with drugs. We're trained in that. We have the 12-step program that we can help them work through for the deaf. Shirley, I know several people who have been sent to Minnesota for treatment. Jennifer, they do have a good program. Shirley, I was wondering if we could set up a mental health program here in Iowa, maybe an expansion of DIAA. I know it was tried in the 90s, but it wasn't very successful because of funding. Jennifer, what do you think we can bring to the elderly community to help them feel safe? Albert, really, we just need to educate them about their rights and promote your services so that they know that you are here if they need help. Shirley, I thought it would be great to have Albert here because maybe his group could start something new. Jennifer, do you have a Facebook page for your elder group? Albert, the Iowa Deaf Elders? Yes. Jennifer, so can we send you flyers and promotions? Albert, absolutely. Send them our way. We would be happy to share them. No problem. Shirley, do you also know that Albert is the chairperson of the Deaf Grassroots Movement, the DGM? Albert, yes. Yep, send information my way and we'll share it there too. Jennifer, are a lot of elders in the DGM? Not many, but there are a few. And you can always send stuff to ADA. Jennifer, we have posted a few things on their page. I know, so, okay. You know, we just need to continue to educate. Shirley, I think it would be great if you could give a workshop at one of the deaf senior citizens luncheons. I know Council Bluffs has one that meets monthly and they play games and get together. They also have a deaf women's luncheon that gets together. Jennifer, is that like the purple or red hat group? Shirley, no, it's just a group of deaf senior citizens that meets monthly. I don't know about others out in the community outside of Council Bluffs. Des Moines used to have a group that met on Wednesdays, but I think they disbanded due to low attendance. Jennifer, I know transportation is tough. Money also, especially if there is financial abuse going on. Shirley, maybe DIAA needs to start a campaign of like, don't be afraid and we will protect you or something like that to try and get rid of the fear. Jennifer, fear is the number one issue. You know, we can't promise that we will take away the fear, but we can help empower them to move on. Shirley, yes, they are afraid that if they report, they may lose their family member. And then, you know, who would be there to help them and to support them? Jennifer, that's part of advocacy. You know, we are behind you. We're supporting you. That's part of our job, to come along beside you and help you and to empower. And we need more awareness of what DIAA can offer and more awareness of how the community can help. Surely, we need to build up their confidence and empower them. Jennifer, and part of elder abuse is to remind elders to stay active. You know, if you're sitting around all day, it's not going to help. You have to keep moving. Surely, I've noticed that Chris and I have lost a lot of weight. We are more active than we were last year, and it seems to have really helped. Albert, about 2 months ago, I joined the YMCA to exercise, and I feel better. Jennifer, does your organization do monthly activities? Albert, locally here we meet monthly to get together and eat. We alternate between a meeting on the Illinois and the Iowa side of the river. And there's a pretty good attendance. I think our high was about 27 people or so. You know, Shirley says, you know, a lot of elderly people stay home because of health issues, or maybe they have transportation issues. So, but, you know, we only get together for about an hour or so to socialize and hang out. Jennifer, do you attend? Surely, if I don't have a conflict on my schedule, usually, you know, one of the three of us are there, sometimes all of us. Jennifer, can you let me know when the next one is, and I will try to attend, if I'm allowed as a 47-year-old. Albert, we usually say 50 and above, but you're welcome to come. We usually keep that stipulation for locals, but you could come as a visitor. Jennifer, yes, I have about 3 more years until I'm 50. Shirley, is there anyone at DIAA over 50? Jennifer, nope, I'm the oldest. Can we attend as an organization? Albert, sure, come, and you could do a presentation. We, you know, sometimes have different topics of discussion. Jennifer, well, just let us know. Albert, sure, we won't be meeting in July because of the holiday. We meet usually the first Friday of the month. Because, you know, people don't have to work, and it fits better into people's work schedule. Jennifer, okay, well, thank you so much for your time and for meeting with me. We hope that we can raise awareness and people's involvement and continue to move forward. Absolutely.